Ready to do business, Iran looks to update its aging fleet of commercial planes. And President Rouhani has landed in Italy, making the first state visit to Europe by an Iranian leader in 16 years. A report from Tehran coming up. Also ahead, 1 week to go. US presidential contenders hit the campaign trail hard just 7 days before the crucial Iowa caucuses. We'll be live in Des Moines later in the show. Also ahead,
my people die young in this country. We die 10 years younger than average Australians, and we are far from free.
An impassioned speech by a prominent Australian journalist. We'll have more on the viral video about his country's record on Indigenous rights coming up this hour.
Live from CNN Centre, this is Connect the World.
But first, we start with the war in Syria, and peace talks between the warring parties were supposed to get underway in Geneva on Monday. But the UN Special Envoy now says they've been pushed back and will start Friday. He says discussions are continuing over who should be invited to represent the opposition. On the ground, the violence rages on, and so does the human suffering. These images are said to show the aftermath of recent fighting in the city of Aleppo. CNN's Paton-Walsh has been following the Syrian conflict and joins us now from Beirut in neighbouring Lebanon. And Nick, the UN Special Envoy for Syria said that every day lost is a lost day for a ceasefire. How challenging is it to bring the relevant parties together to find a political resolution?
Well, this really was kind of the 0 hour where many felt that the increasing international pressure and perhaps increasingly similar script, bar the fate of Assad, between Washington and Moscow here might yield something. But last-minute hurdles, everybody seeming to disagree on who should be the invitees list. Now, what we heard today from Staffan de Mistura, the Special Envoy, was basically a message that said this train is going to leave anyway on Friday. Either you're on it or you're off it. And if you're off it, you might not be able to influence quite where it goes. So the notion really, I think, is that they will pretty much invite everybody apart from those groups listed by the UN Security Council as terrorist organisations, and then hope that they're worried about being left out of the process. But some may not show, some may walk out, and he's using very vague language about quite where this is supposed to go. Here's what he said.
We are going to aim at the proximity talks starting on the 29th and ongoing for 6 months on a staggered chronological proximity approach. That will be the way we try to make it different from the past. This is not Geneva 3. This is leading to what we hope will be a Geneva success story if we are able to push it forward.
Now, what does that mean, proximity talks? Well, it means that you're probably not going to see the different groups, even perhaps those in the opposition who don't agree with each other, necessarily in the same room or even the same hotel. It might simply mean that they're brought to the same area and Mr. de Mistura will shuffle between them, trying to work out common ground. In the first 3 weeks, that'll be the most intense approach that I hope perhaps certainly John Kerry, the US Secretary of State, hopes that maybe the process will begin to define itself and people will be scared to be left out. But the key question is who's going to attend. Meeting tomorrow in Riyadh, the Saudi capital, between opposition groups. That may solidify their position, but there have been such many last-minute changes of position or new red lines drawn that I think many are concerned you may see key parties not show up on Friday, and that could undermine the process overall.
And US, Nick, speaking of John Kerry, the US Secretary of State did reach out to the foreign ministers from both Russia and Saudi Arabia. Do you have any indication about how those talks are going or what was said?
Well, there was a lot of last-minute closed-doors telephone calls made. There were indications, certainly, from people I was talking to ahead of this announcement that perhaps they may not know when it was going to occur at all, when the talks were going to occur at all. But there seems to have been last-minute phone calls between John Kerry, Sergei Lavrov, his Russian counterpart. That may have been to design pressure or perhaps them to be on the same page. Let's just hold the talks and see who is willing to show up and invite pretty much everyone that we can. But the key question you have to ask yourself is what has this last-minute grandstanding done to those who will actually attend. There's been criticism, reports that perhaps John Kerry pressured some of the Syrian opposition into attending. Maybe they didn't like that. We know certainly the Russians don't want to be at the same table as Jaish al-Islam, one of the key opposition groups who they consider to be terrorists. It's a frantic mess, but I think the notion here is they believe if they push forwards and just start a process, maybe people won't want to be left out of it and will show up. Lynda?
OK, Nick Paton-Walsh in Beirut, Lebanon. Thank you very much.